Thank you very much. And thank you for the invitation to address you today on this very significant commemoration of a struggle for 140 years ago, the first, as Fran said, industrial dispute in this country and the beginning of the growth of a new trade union movement. When workers in the Derby silk mill took strike action in solidarity with one of their number who was being victimised at work by being fined for poor quality of work, a very common device in those days to keep down wages. If you don't know the full story of the strike, there's an excellent article in today's Morning Star by Bill Greenshields that details it. But what I'd like to do today is see what lessons we can draw from that struggle 140 years ago. Because as the last speaker said before we set off on the march, it's a struggle that we are still fighting today. So what lessons can we draw? Well, I want to start with the address that was made by the striking workers, the silk mill workers, and by that point others who joined them. In the address to the people of Derby, they spoke and they addressed themselves to the bosses, and this is what they said: keep what you have got. We want none of it. We would be satisfied with the legitimate fruits of our own industry. We have hitherto worked for you, and more fools we. We would henceforth work for ourselves. Our object then is not to rob you in violation of the law, but to prevent you from further robbing us as the law permits you to do. And I think they knew something then that we would be wise to remember now, which is that the law was not on their side. The law may have prevented them from robbing the bosses, but it didn't stop the bosses from exploiting them. Now, that may seem obvious to people today when we've got the introduction of minimum service levels legislation and undemocratic thresholds to try and prevent us from taking strike action. And we must fight for any incoming government within the first 100 days to repeal the Minimum Service Levels Act and repeal the 2016 Trade Union Act. And that should be the beginning of repealing all of the anti-union laws that restrict our rights to organise collectively and to take action. But be under no illusion, even with all of those laws gone, there are not purely legal solutions to our issues. For 20 years, I was a workplace rep, in my view, the most important role in our unions. And the most common question I was asked by my members was, can they do this? Are they allowed to do this? And I know what they wanted was for me to find some clever point of law or clever point in the contract to tell them that it wasn't possible and the employer had to back off. But the reality is whether that will let them do it. And that brings me to the second lesson I think we can learn from those workers, because what they did, frustrated by the law, was get together and organise collectively. They organised their workplace, they built the union, and they took on the struggle themselves. I think the second lesson we learn from them is that it is up to us to organise our workplaces, to bring people together, because that is the only way to win our rights through collective organisation. So we need to go out and build a bigger and stronger and broader trade union movement that can really push back. And again, in the face of a general election where I ideally hope, that we get these evil, conniving Tories out of power for once and for all. When we wake up on the 5th of July to a new government, that government will be under immense pressure from the business lobby, from the super rich, to backtrack on what it's promised to workers. It will be under immense pressure to keep wages down and to keep the restrictions on workers' rights. So on day one of that brand new government, yes, we must support our friends who've been elected into Parliament, but equally we must keep the pressure up that day and every single day, because it's only the pressure of this trade union movement, the organised working class, that will push back and win our rights. And then the third lesson, because when the strikers at Derby Silk Mill didn't win immediately, and of course eventually their struggle was not won, what they did was they went out and they organised with the other silk mills across the valley. They organised with other industries. And before long, you effectively had what was in practice a general strike across the valley, workers supporting each other in all their diversity, different people, different industries coming together. And that lesson of building a movement that is broad, and diverse, but united is a lesson we must take on board. The trade union movement we build must really look like the working class it represents, not one small section of it. And that means taking on all the issues that our members and our potential members care about, whether those are trade union issues, narrowly defined, community issues, or indeed international issues. And let me say very, very clearly, Palestine is a trade union issue. It should not be acceptable in this movement to say that British jobs are worth more than Palestinian lives. No more. We must struggle in solidarity for a free Palestine. So building that movement, learning the lessons that the law is not what will protect us, that it's us organising collectively with our colleagues at work and building a broad, diverse and unified movement that will take us forward. Those are the lessons we learn, I believe, from the Derby Silk Mill strikers as we remember them today. Thank you.